Ukraine may find itself in the epicenter of a new international scandal.
We're gonna reveal the ins and outs of the political game in Ukraine.
Do they realize that covering those schemes can cost him or her 40 years of such salary in just 1 month?
Another war that Russia is waging against Ukraine.
Shouldn't we organize a crowdfunding? Just buy a couple of positions from President's Chief of Staff Yermak's brother and to give them to someone adequate.
Hello world, it's KyivNotKiev on the line.
And we're very pleased to know that you joined us today to learn more about Ukraine from the Ukrainians.
My name is Polina Boychuk, somewhere there is Tetiana Haiduk, and before we start, we'd like to remind you about the importance of subscribing to our YouTube channel so that you could never miss anything important.
So let's start.
So our first story will probably cost us advertising because we're gonna mention the names of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And online platforms hearing those names just automatically reject all the advertisements because they consider it to be a political advertising, which is not.
Whatsoever, we're not going to engage in self-censorship and avoid discussing topics that really matter. That is why we're going to tell you about Trump and the crazy thing that he's done. In return, please promise us to share this KyivNotKiev episode on your social media so that we'll never ever bother ourselves with its promotion.
So coming back to Trump and the crazy thing. And by the crazy thing, I mean Vladimir Putin. On the 25th of April, a day that marks the 75th anniversary of the meeting on the Alp, the two presidents issued a joint statement commemorating the historic day. And you know, the mere existence of this very joint statement is outraging.
Yes, it is, because first, Russia cannot monopolize victory in World War II. Defeat of the Nazi regime costed millions of human lives. Both of my great-grandparents died at that war. And now Russia, experiencing phantom pains of the no longer existent USSR, has neither historical nor moral right to monopolize victory. Moreover, Russia has no right to do so for its just political promotion on the international arena.
Exactly. Secondly, President Trump's desire to find some points of contact with Putin cannot be fulfilled at the expense of historical justice. Just look at this picture. Do you know who these persons are? These are Alexander Silvashko, that's a Ukrainian, who is hugging William Robertson, that's an American, on that memorable day of the 25th of April 1945. It's very sad to say that Ukraine lost every fifth Ukrainian in the Second World War, and it is unacceptable that the memory of this sacrifice would be buried during another war that Russia is waging against Ukraine, a war for the historical past.
The Ministry of Finance forbade officials to use the words default, debt restructuring, and compromise with the former owners of Privatbank in communications with media. The document was the recommendations hit the media.
The ministry also recommended not to advise anyone to purchase or sell government securities, to make forecasts about their values, etc. Failure to follow the recommendations may scare off foreign investors holding more than $25 billion in Ukrainian government bonds.
Ukraine has been of a great assistance to the NATO countries thanks to its aircraft that performs strategic flights for the alliance member countries. France, Spain, Poland, Czech Republic, Denmark, Germany and the United States. It's not a complete list of countries where Ukrainian aircraft brought medical masks, protective suits and medical equipment from China during the last month.
An-225 Maria, which is by the way Dream in English, is the largest cargo aircraft in the world that was built by Kyiv construction bureau Antonov in the late 1980s.
Antonov Airlines also has a fleet of Ruslan An-124 aircraft, which are the largest cargo aircraft in the world. Ukrainian cargo airplanes have become the most effective promotion of Ukraine in the world.
Try to count how many words of cargo airplanes I have said during the sentence. And now we're gonna break for the surprise episode involving our new co-hosters. What?
Before Ukraine, I have never visited Europe at all. I thought that Ukrainians are serious people. They hardly to laugh or to smile, something like that.
I remember being hot because it was the middle of summer. I was like, oh, it's hot.
My first impression, it was before landing. Actually, it was a lot of greens because we in Egypt, we don't have this amount of trees and forests and stuff. So it was very beautiful from the airplane before landing.
Looking out the window, it seemed like more developed than I anticipated, maybe.
And then the people, they were very friendly.
Ukrainians, they embrace easily, like, hug. I often get hugged in Ukraine, but in Indonesia, I never get hugged by anyone,
Ooh. Hard. Any stereotype I thought of Ukraine was broken. I can say that. Like of people in Ukraine.
When Ukrainians speak, they are like reciting a poetry.
So a lot of people have things in common. Actually, the generosity, the sense of humor. A lot of things in common. I didn't find any differences actually.
I saw a lot of people kissing in the public places. It is very uncommon in Indonesia.
There's places that are pretty, it's cheap. Like that's a big winner because anywhere that's cheap is
Ukrainians are beautiful, the Ukrainian people. Also, the culture is also really beautiful. When I was in Kiev, it was Independence Day and there are a lot of cultural events there. I saw a very traditional Ukrainian wedding and it was impressive.
Lviv is absolutely so pretty.
A lot of fun things to do there and it's pleasant to go there.
Ukraine is number one.
It's number one, of course. It's the Maidan.
The left one is from Ukraine. They close it on Sunday and people go there and walk and do stuff, right? Number one or number two? Number two? No, the one on the left, I guess.
I think number one is also Ukraine. Pretty certain that's somewhere in the UK.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's pretty difficult.
Yeah.
I think it's number one.
Maybe number two?
Okay, this is difficult. Maybe number one. I'm just guessing.
I think it's the one on the left. I don't know, but it has the Ukrainian vibes, No, this one is hard because it's all white, so I can't tell anything actually.
Ooh, mountains. So number one I think is Fuji. And I think number two is Ukraine.
They all look the same. And number two?
I will guess it's the one on the right. It's Ivano-Frankivsk.
Number one is Ukraine.
Okay, this is pretty obvious because one picture shows Asian people, one picture shows European. So I think it's number one.
I think it's the one on the left.
Oh, Ukraine have this kind of place.
Oh wow, that's stunning. Number two?
So maybe number two.
I will have to say the one on the right.
Number one?
Number one is Ukraine. Because number two is the Golden Gate.
The one on the left.
Oh yeah. I remember.
This one is very hard.
Oh, that's hard. Number two?
The one on the left? I don't know.
It was a complete guess.
Is it number two?
Number one is Ukraine.
Okay, I think it's number two, right?
I went to this place. The one on the left is Ukraine.
Oh, it's with the Y.
Yeah.
I was like, which one is it? Is it the one with the Y or the one without the Y? I was like, because there's two ways to spell it.
K-Y-I-V, I guess.
K-Y-I-V.
Yes, perfect. So we're going to proceed with the new chapter that is called Insides Out. That might be especially interesting for the ones who are quite aware. Today we're going to reveal the ins and outs of the political game in Ukraine.
Some time ago, we used to talk a lot about the new appointments. Then we decided to pause because it was senseless for you and, what to say, even for us to remember all of these new faces that are constantly being replaced. However, now there is a risk that the new faces will be replaced by the old butts. So we need to talk to you about that.
On the 24th of April, on Friday evening, the government made a decision to dismiss Serhiy Varlanov, head of the State Tax Service, and Maxim Nefedov, head of the State Customs Service. Both had held office for less than a year, but they were suddenly dismissed without any public explanation during the extraordinary meeting on Friday evening.
Later, Prime Minister Shmyhal explained the sudden dismissal. He said, when they were in the office, the state budget of 2019 showed one of the lowest revenue numbers for the last several years.
But this statement is a bit manipulative. We have looked into the statistics and we have to admit that hryvnia revenues are rising and all the numbers as a percentage of the GDP are quite good. So is the 2019 budget deficit, because the 1.96% deficit does not seem that disastrous.
Polina, my theory was that the Prime Minister meant some other budgetary revenues, such as customs and tax revenue plans. But even in this case, everything is more or less fine. The tax plan has been fulfilled, while the customs one has not. But that is reasonable due to the strengthening of hryvnia, the fall in energy prices, and decrease in energy consumption.
Well, I'm afraid that the Prime Minister did not even mean those revenues because he was probably speaking about the revenues that cannot be publicly discussed, because I'm speaking about the incomes of the former and who knows, probably current political elites who have earned a lot of money thanks to various tax schemes ranging from, alcohol, fuel, tobacco, vodka to VAT schemes for years. And of course, their revenues have fallen significantly.
Interestingly, that the competition to replace the vacancies of tax and customs official was announced that very Friday. The deadline for submitting documents was Monday. That's 2 days, and that's 2 weekends. I even don't know whether to joke about the salary, because it's really not funny. The salary announced during the competition was 29,400 hryvnias. It's just a little bit more than $1,000. So a very high government official who will have to fight against the shadow schemes will earn only $1,000 per month. Do they realize that covering those schemes can cost him or her 40 years of such salary in just 1 month?
And guess what happened on Monday? The Cabinet of Ministers on Monday allowed to appoint the new head of tax service without any competition, but by the results of the interview, and the competition was just postponed. That's it.
So, why are we telling you all of this? It is not about Mr. Nefedov and Mr. Varlanov, or about their personalities. It's about people that will replace them. The names announced was Vasyl Tsushko and Alexei Lyubchenko, the prominent figures of Viktor Yanukovych's times. It seems that they applied for the vacancies long before they were announced. By the way, Lyubchenko was appointed for the tax service chief yesterday.
And haven't they filed their declarations for the positions of deputy ministers of finance or something?
Is that better? I have long been very concerned about the fact that President Zelenskyy is pursuing a completely messy and chaotic stuffing policy. Seems like the last representatives of the revolution of dignity, ideological, uncompromising, zero-tolerating corruption, are now leaving important positions. And their successors are those defiled representatives of those defiled governments. I'm ready to go to the barricades.
You're not alone, Tanya. And by the way, the EU and the US have also issued a joint statement claiming that they are closely following all the appointments in the customs and tax services. And I'm citing, it's important to follow fair, merit-based competitive procedures and not risk long-term reforms supported by international partners. And you know, I can understand them because the West has invested too much to support the reforms in Ukraine, and they just cannot allow everything to crumble right now.
You know what? I've got an idea. Shouldn't we organize a crowdfunding? Just buy a couple of positions from President's Chief of Staff Yermak's brother and to give them to someone adequate. Bingo!
Good idea.
Ukraine may find itself in the epicenter of a new international scandal, and the reason is labor migration and our employees.
While European countries from Finland to Poland are ready to spend a lot on arranging special charters for Ukrainian seasonal workers, the Ukrainian government has completely banned Ukrainians from leaving the country. On the 28th of April, the President of Ukraine signed the law on the circulation of agricultural land. You can see the picture and try finding the president. No, that's not the president on the left. The president is standing on the right.
If you want to know more about the very important law on the circulation of agricultural land and all the underwater rocks, check our 7th episode in which we explained what the law is about and why it is important for Ukraine and our international partners.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you could never miss anything important from Ukraine.
Don't forget to participate in Proud Ukrainian Challenge. All the rules in our video, because next time we're gonna show you something interesting.
And don't forget to comment the video below. How are you living these days? What's happening in your country right now? What news from Ukraine impressed you most of all? And by the way, please send us the stories that you'd like us to discuss in our next episode.
Thank you for watching us today.
XOXO, Поліна Бойчук and Тетяна Гайдук.
Stay safe, stay kind, and remember the most important thing, Kyiv, not Kiev.
From Ukraine with love.